Hey, Aaron Rabinowitz here for RedGiantTV.com. If you've worked with Magic Bullet looks, then you know how ridiculously awesome it is for both using the huge library of preset looks for quick results and for creating your own looks as well. But you've probably come across a situation where a look you absolutely loved didn't quite work with your footage. Well, in this episode of Red Giant TV, Apple certified master trainer, Adobe certified expert, UK resident, and all-around great guy, Simon Walker will go over the presets in Looks 2, giving you tips and techniques for getting the most out of them while working faster. And he'll also look at some of the new features in Magic Bullet Looks 2 to talk about how you can use them in this process to get even more out of this powerful tool. Take it away, Simon.
Hey everyone. For the update to Looks 2, there were a number of significant improvements, including the addition of multiple new tools, like Cosmo and Pop, Lens Distortion and Haze Flare, and some of the professional tools from Colorista, like the three-way color wheels and the HSL, the hue, saturation and luma range controls. So the updates to the presets incorporate the addition of these new tools, as well as providing continuity with the existing presets from the previous version of Looks. Red Giant asked me to design and reconfigure the presets for them for the new release, so I thought it'd be useful to go through the updated presets and give a bit more information about how and when to use them, and point out the sorts of situations in which they'd be useful. There are over 100 presets in Looks 2, dozens of new ones, dozens of updated ones, with the best and most useful presets from the previous version included. They're set out into 9 categories, which relate to the type of effect or look you want to add, organised into functional groups that have more meaningful names, and therefore more useful for filmmakers. This also makes them easier and quicker to use. This reconfiguration of categories is also useful if you're working on a laptop or a screen with a lower resolution, as related looks are more likely to be sitting next to each other in the same category, which saves the amount of time you might have to do to scroll up and down through the categories. Plus, something else that helps is that if you're on a lower resolution, having just 3 presets in a row means there's now more room to view the main image in the preview window in the middle of the screen. The basic category is made up of the invisible fixes, presets that are designed to improve shots without suggesting that they've been obviously treated. They mainly involve a light, subtle treatment. The names are also quite descriptive to reflect their purpose. Contrast adds a small amount of contrast to help define the image. I'm showing you the before and after states by clicking on the tool chain button, which you can also do with the / keyboard shortcut. Using the keyboard shortcut is much faster, and it means you can turn the grade off and on with one hand whilst adjusting controls with your mouse hand. It's a much faster way of working. Contrast is using a slight variation of the classic S-shaped film curve to boost the highlights and to darken the shadows. The majority of the time when you're working with digital video, especially if you're shooting H.264 video on a DSLR, or if you're working with XD cam footage or another one of the popular tapeless formats, then the process of increasing the contrast in an image also increases the saturation. It's to do with how the RGB values in the video are encoded in the YCbCr color space that most digital video uses. The contrast preset was designed to boost the contrast without exaggerating the color, so that's why the saturation tool is in there to bring down the saturation boost that's been introduced by the curves tool. Just enough to make a difference, but without stylizing the image. There's a bit of pop in there as well to help define the image a bit further. Actually, pop is an interesting tool. It affects local contrast, so when you drag the control to a positive value, it has a sharpening effect on the edges in the image, but it adds this contrast without significantly increasing the saturation, which I find really useful. This means it works well in the sharpen preset, because it adds definition to the shot without darkening the shadows as much as contrast does. So in sharpen, pop is at a higher setting and is adding local contrast or sharpness to the shot. Whereas vibrant is adding a bit of sharpness, a bit of contrast and a bit of saturation to improve the overall look without sacrificing the detail. The fourth of this mini set is shadow lift, which brings up the detail in the shadows. All these 4 are subtly different because not all cameras take the same pictures. By default, many cameras come with a standard setting that exaggerates the contrast and often the saturation of the video you're taking. Unless you disable this in the settings, you're effectively applying a look set up by the camera before you've even started grading. So these presets are designed to fix or reduce these types of effects, or to enhance footage but without shouting out, "This has been treated." The warm and cool looks in this section are more treated looks though, but they're still quite subtle. They're less strong than some of the other presets in the other categories, and they're designed as a good starting point to set a mood without being too stylized. The cinematic looks are definite treatments. Some of these are updates from the previous version of looks. For example, Blockbuster, with its familiar cool shadows and warm highlights, uses the new oval vignettes in looks 2, the vignettes that you can now change the aspect ratio. And it also has auto shoulder added at the end of the tool chain to catch any overbrights created by the curves tool. This is better than just having the bright values clamped by a broadcast safe filter, because auto shoulder nicely rounds down the brightest values. This is a technique that's been introduced to quite a number of the updated presets to make sure that your brights and some of your oversaturated colors stay legal. In cinematic, there's a range of different looks to emulate different Hollywood treatments, with a bunch of new ones, and if some of these are looking quite familiar, that's because they're the actual looks used on Seth Worley's short film plot device, which you have to check out if you haven't seen it. It's up on the Red Giant site, and it's a great example of how a look or colour treatment combined with camera movement or camera angles, and great acting and music, can combine to suggest a variety of different genres. Make sure you catch the making of video as well, which is also on redgiant.com. In any case, you can replicate these looks with these particular presets. I find it's very useful to use these cinematic presets as they're designed to emulate specific films, but they're also a good jumping off point, so you can be inspired by your own footage. Just cycling through the presets often gives me many happy accidents on the timeline, and it suggests a particular treatment or a similar style once I tweak the tools in the toolchain to make the preset have its own unique look. The diffusion presets are now collected together inside diffusion and light. These are the types of presets useful to help suggest a mood or a flashback, especially if you've got bright highlights in the shot. In here are also presets that use the new haze flare tool to emulate light spills and lens reflections based on the brightest areas of the shot. You can use gold flare to simulate a lens flare effect, or warm haze to suggest a warm environment, or a sunny afternoon, or even a stylized memory. There's a number of ways you can drive tools like haze flare and anamorphic flare. The standard way is to use the footage itself to control the flares. If the light in the shot is varying from frame to frame, the flares will change according to how bright the light is. If the flare is too bright for a shot, there are lots of controls that you can tweak to adjust to taste, including completely changing the tint. Also, note the usage of pop in the toolchain. It's nice to use pop with a positive value to introduce some detail back into the shot to balance the amount of flare activity going on. That's one of the several things that pop was designed for, to increase the edge detail, as well as not significantly affecting the contrast of the whole shot, but on hazy footage to bring back detail that otherwise would be lost. The other way to manage flare tools is to artificially increase an area of brightness. For example, in halogen with the spot exposure tool, which you can then reposition. You can move the spot exposure tool around, then you've got more control over the exact location of flare elements and where you want to put them in the shot. This also works if you're using the anamorphic flare tool. This has a more specific look to it, but the principle of pre-lightening areas of the shot still applies here. The monochromatic category collects together tinted and black and white theme presets at a variety of different settings, with some new additional presets. Graphic Novel combines a number of techniques to suggest the areas of flat monotone you'd find in a comic book. So this could be useful for a comic book adaptation, or to suggest that's the style of the film that you're making. This look also reminds me of the high contrast soft focus shots that you sometimes see in 1940s movies. especially in close-ups. Cosmo and Pop at the start of the tool chain are used to significantly flatten the skin tone and give a nice smooth surface, with the vignette, the curves, and the three-way colour wheels exaggerating the shadows for this really nice high contrast effect. The fastest way to adjust this preset, if the shadows are too strong, is to grab the contrast control on the Curves tool. This is the thing about these presets in Looks. Although they've got a defined look, you've got all the tools available that make up that look, so it's really quick with a small adjustment to come up with a custom look that suits your particular footage. Red Solo and Warm Isolation are two more new presets. These desaturate everything except a single colour or range of colours, and use one of the new tools inherited from Colorista 2. Ranged HSL makes it easy to affect the saturation or the lightness of a single primary or secondary colour just by grabbing a colour pin and moving it in or out of the hue and saturation or hue and lightness wheels. You can get a really nice effect by desaturating all the colours except the warm colours. Here the orange and the red pins. The reason I didn't desaturate red for Warm Isolation and just leave orange as the sole colour, because skin tones tend to be orange, is that red is also present in skin tone, and removing the red can create an odd, unnatural effect. Using these pins is such a fast way of targeting a single colour. But you don't have to stick to these particular colours. You can start off with the preset and then adjust different pins if you want to affect different colours, say the blue of his hat in this shot. Warm Isolation has a similar technique to Red Solo. Red Solo is very similar in the method it uses to isolate red, but it's important to be selective when using it, especially on close-ups, because it can reveal the red that's inherently present in the skin tones. Red Solo works really well on bright reds, especially on items of clothing. It's much faster than having to isolate the colour with a key and then having to adjust that colour. Plus you're able to do it within one program, Looks. Monochromatic is also where you find the series of tinted presets with different colours and different strengths to suggest different situations or different stylized treatments. Whereas Stylized collects together presets that are obvious, deliberate, dramatic looks, with multiple colour adjustments. It has presets that are designed to change the mood, or the time of day, or to just change one section or one part of the image. It also has presets that are designed to technically correct issues in the footage itself. The new lens distortion tool is useful for correcting for the type of distortion that you can get with different types of lenses. But it can also be used to create a deliberately stylized effect, like simulating a fisheye lens, which is actually very easy to adjust and tweak in the preview window itself. When you're creating these types of stylized effects, it's good to help sell the effect by using additional tools to simulate the sort of thing that can actually happen when you're using a real-world lens, when you're using a lens in real life. This is why Pincushion has soft edges and, importantly, a chromatic aberration effect to simulate the shift in the red, green and blue channels, which can happen, especially towards the edge of the picture. There are also presets in Stylized that use features like the Swing Tilt tool and the Spot Exposure tool to highlight certain areas of the image to concentrate the viewer's attention. And you also find effects that really stylize the image, like using the Film Grain tool to add a grungy effect, or really cooling the image down to suggest a shot that was filmed at night. Or here's a new one, Street Light, which has a similar evening feel to it, and simulates what it would be like to put your character under a streetlight, which usually has this kind of orangey light to it. On these types of shots, you also get a different type of light in the background. So that's why the grad exposure at the end of the toolchain has blue in it to help suggest the evening environment. People is a category dedicated to improving the look of close-ups. All these presets are new, and they all feature the skin smoothing tool, Cosmo. Beauty Shot and Berlin Smooth have definite cinematic treatments, and Movie Star creates a smooth look with artificial lighting. Whereas Skin Smoother just affects the skin without changing the hue or the colour. It's got a small amount of positive pop in it as well to subtly enhance the detailed edges in the shot, which typically would be around the eyes. This edge detail enhancing or local contrast that pop is adding is different to the preserve detail in Cosmo. Preserve detail is targeting the detail within the areas being softened by Cosmo. As always with skin softening, unless you want a highly stylized look, keep the amounts of skin soften and preserve detail to conservative values, which will help to keep the skin looking more natural. Interview and investigative both have a highlighting vignette, which you can reposition to feature the subject. So depending where the subject is in your shot, if you move the vignette, then you're effectively moving the light source. And in Looks 2, you can easily change the aspect of the vignette, which lets you highlight certain areas more accurately. And then depending on the exposure, you can change the strength of the vignette. This is a quick way of removing attention from the rest of the shot and centering the focus, if you like, on the main character that you want to feature. Classic music videos and classic popular TV contain the standout presets from the similar categories from the last version of Looks, with a few tweaks and improvements together with some new presets. Essentially, these two categories are a quick way of adding stylized treatments to make the stars in your videos stand out. There are new treatments that create a dramatic look with soft skin like Pop Star, as well as looks that bring out the detail like Punchy and Sharper. Similarly, there are presets to emotionally connect the audience with the actors. There are new ones like Tension and Indecision, as well as popular TV looks like Crime Scene and Tropical Wash. These help set the mood of your scenes. They're a way of informing the audience of what's going on in the scene without using dialogue. They're an extra storytelling device. Classic stock emulation now has several versions of the popular bleach bypass effect, with neutral, warm and cool versions, as well as a range of other presets to simulate different types of film stock and processes. For example, red scale is a new one, and simulates the technique of exposing just the red and green layers of the film. This preset uses the Curves tool to manufacture this look, and it has a nice tonal range across the highlights and midtones. As well as the inbuilt presets, you can easily create custom ones. If you like a preset but you want to adjust a small element of it, or even add another tool to it, then by double-clicking in the look name, you can type in your own custom name. And once you hit enter or return, that custom preset is stored in the custom category. All the presets in Looks 2 are ordered by date, so once you've made a custom preset, the custom category sorts to the top of the list, and every time you create additional new custom presets, the newest one sorts to the top of the custom category itself. If you want to share looks with other users or across different machines, you can export individual looks from the File menu. But if you want to export multiple presets all at the same time, it's faster if you navigate to where the custom looks files are stored on your computer. On the Mac, they're stored in the library folder of your user account. So on Mac OS X, it's your user, then library, application support, looks builder, looks, and in the custom folder. The default directory on Windows is C program files, looks builder, looks custom. And once you're in there, you can add or delete files as you desire. Note the new file extension, by the way. Looks 2 presets are .mblook files, whereas Looks 1 presets are .ls3 files. The new file extension format allows information of the new tools in Looks 2 to be embedded within the presets. But Looks 2 is backwards compatible, so all the .ls3 files, that is all the version 1 presets, still work in Looks 2. By the way, there's an extra step you need to make if you're on a Mac running OS 10.7. By default, the library folder is invisible if you're using Lion. But it's reasonably straightforward to show it again though, by opening up Terminal and executing a specific command. Terminal sits inside Utilities within the Applications folder, but you can also run it from Launchpad. If you open it up and enter chflags space no hidden space ~/library, and then hit the enter key, this makes the library folder visible all the time in the Finder. You only have to do this once. And you'll then have access to files within the library folder itself. Specifically, the ones we're after are the custom presets within the custom folder. If you want to, you can hide the library folder again by typing in a very similar command. This time it's chflags space hidden space ~/library. But actually there's an even quicker way of getting access to the library folder. Just choose Go from the Finder menu. And once you've got it selected, hold down the Option key. And, magically, the library folder appears. You can then select it and navigate inside the library folder within the Finder. So actually this is a much easier way if you don't fancy messing about in Terminal. You may also have purchased Guru packs of presets from the Red Giant website. These are also backwards compatible. So all the Guru preset packs will work in Lux 2. They'll still be listed in their own individual categories, but they'll be listed below the main categories. As I mentioned before, the order of the presets is date sorted. So for example, this is why Eric's Indie Film 2 is sorted higher, because it was released after the first one. So the order of them reflects the date order in which they were released. These are some free presets I made and uploaded to Red Giant People. I've got an additional folder here because I created it manually. I created a folder and then named it and put it in a specific location on the computer, and so it turns up in the category list here. This is actually easy to do, and it helps organize presets so that they're easy to manage and therefore easier to use and quicker to use. So if you've got a range of presets that you've made or downloaded, it's useful to have them all in their own folder. You can even give the folder the name of the project you're working on or the name of the client, especially if you've got a series of presets that you work on and crafted for one particular job. Whilst the custom presets in the custom category are stored in your user library folder, the main presets and the Guru Pack presets are stored in the Macintosh HD library folder. Here's the path name for both Mac and Windows. So if you go into the Lux folder and create a new folder, give it a custom name, and put presets within this folder, let's say they're the ones you downloaded from Red Giant People, then they'll turn up in this folder within the Lux interface, which I find is a really useful way of managing multiple presets. It may well be that your set of categories looks a bit like this, which is a combination of the new categories in Lux 2 and the categories from the previous version of Lux. This may be the case, especially if you've installed Magic Bullet Suite, which includes an installation of Photolux, which adds these extra categories. If this is the case, you'll have a mixture of the old and the new presets. Since Lux 2 sorts presets by date, the 9 new categories will be sorted to the top of the list, with the previous categories underneath them. So this means you've got access to all the version 1 and the version 2 presets. You'll have a combination of the version 1 and 2 presets in the basic category though. The top 6 are the new ones, with the rest of them the presets from Lux 1. It's worth pointing out that the usual operation of revealing the presets by moving the mouse to the left of the screen is interrupted if you've got the scopes up. If this is the case, move the mouse to the left of the screen just underneath the scopes where it says Lux, and the presets will pop out as usual. By the way, you can reorder the scopes. You can rearrange their positions. If you click and drag the grey title bar, you can change their order. So if you want to have, say, memory colours and the RGB parade next to each other, you can reorganize them by just dragging. It depends on the screen resolution you're working with and how much space you've got on screen, but I find it very useful, well actually pretty much essential, to have the scopes up when making colour corrections. So overall, the presets in Lux are designed to be a starting point. If you're on a deadline, which is all the time, they're a fast way to get a specific look, or if you're looking for inspiration, they're a fast way to access what type of look works for your shot. As well as setting up specific treatments, I often cycle through presets to give me an idea of what might work, and as well as being a very creative way of working, I find it really speeds up the process, because this is what it's all about. Get the job done, and then on to the next.
Thanks, Simon. Well done. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you want to learn more about Simon, check out his website at www.simonwalkerfreelance.com. There you can find his blog, tutorials, and an exhaustive list of the many growing subjects in which he's certified to train. Also, if you're doing wedding or event videography or photography, check out Simon's Guru preset pack, Weddings and Events for Looks, perfect for adding real emotion into your clients' or your own wedding video or photo album. Don't forget, you can download a free trial version of Magic Bullet Looks 2 at redgiantsoftware.com, and you can get tons of free presets for Red Giant plugins on redgiantpeople.com. And speaking of free, check out Magic Bullet Colorista Free and Luck Buddy, 2 free color correction plugins. That's right, free. Hey, who else gives you that kind of love? You can find those at redgiantsoftware.com. Finally, I want to mention that if you're looking to keep up with what we're doing at Red Giant, whether it's a tutorial, contest, product release, or whatever, just follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or on our blog. Once again, I'm Alan Rabinowitz for redgianttv.com. I'll see you next time.